لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونصلي على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهل هارون أخي أشدد به أزري. أما بعد، ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا عنك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Um, how can we notice thoughts in real time in and outside of meditation without getting taken over by them and then alter or change thought patterns over time and bring the awareness back to Allah when this happens and the thoughts overtake the mind's attention? The way to do this is, of course, it takes some practice and time, but it's again reinforcing what was said. The more we learn to return to this place that we just entered and rest in it, most important part, rest in it. The more we rest in it, the more we existentially disentangle, ourselves from the constant thinking. Even if the thinking is still there, we arrive at or awaken to or open a place in us that was otherwise shut. And this place that is a beautiful, open, vast stillness or peacefulness. And it's from there that then we can begin noticing thoughts. The more you return there and rest there, the more it becomes your home. And the more that we can actually observe our thoughts rather than being taken by the thoughts and then being absorbed in them in the current of our thoughts. If we find this as a problem, as most of us do in most of our lives, it's not just you or Saida or just one other person, it's all of us. The more we do, it's just simply a mirror for us in our present moment muhasaba. If we're being open to the present moment, actually, and being real and sincere, right, and humble about it, it's just a mirror for us that we are entirely engaged and identified with the current of the multitude of thoughts of those waves on the ocean, right? Rather than sinking into the bottom of the ocean or going more inwards into the ocean and recognizing that we are actually the ocean and not just the waves of thoughts. When we can see the waves from the ocean from the standpoint of the bottom of the ocean, now we have perspective, right? In this experience, at some point, the thoughts leave us, or they're no longer present, however you want to put it. In other words, you may stop thinking. And you can do this exercise. You can do an exercise where you just, with your eyes open, if you'd like, that's even easier, just to be aware of your thoughts. Just for the next 2 minutes or 1 minute, just try to be aware of your thoughts. Just be aware and observe your thoughts. I'm going to give you the answer to what happens, and I'd like you to do it on your own, and all of you. Your thoughts will leave you. You will actually have no thoughts when you become aware and open to observing your thoughts. Why is that? This is not some kind of magic game. What's going on there? You've existentially de-identified from being identified with the current of your thinking by simply awaking to conscious awareness. That's what's happening. So the more we return to a sense of conscious awareness in a relaxed way, the easier this becomes. If it's difficult to sustain a relaxed awareness as the witness in meditation, if it is hard, and it is for most people, then we need to cultivate more formal awareness of thoughts or focus on thoughts, attention to thoughts or other things, the practice thereof, in other words, of meditation. of the dhikrullah or any other form of invocation or meditation, observing of the breath or of sensing. We need to strengthen the mind's attentiveness to be more focused on one object. Right? Now, that's not the end all, but that strengthens your sense of harnessing attention. So that then, when this is done more successfully for more sustained periods of time, we can then learn from that centeredness to relax that focus. Right? It's just kind of an art, a skill, a tawfiq, a grace from God that actually begins happening. And so those would be the steps. If we find it hard to have a sense of relaxed awareness of things, of our thoughts, and this can happen to anyone, but to myself also if I'm involved in something, then simply we either disengage from whatever's happening and turn our attention elsewhere, even into the body, stretching, but not going so far into that, because then you get lost in that. And maybe other thoughts arise, right? Or you set times for actual practices of conscious breath work and bringing in the dhikr of Allah into this, that the breath itself is a sign and a blessing of God and the life He gave us. Bringing in that reflection into conscious kind of sensing of the breath is a very beautiful practice of Muraqaba and Sufism. Right? One can then do that. One of its effects is a strengthening of the mind, what the Buddhists call in their wisdom, one-pointedness, right? But the point is to go from one-pointedness to oneness, awakening to a sense of oneness. I mean, that sounds, beautiful. It sounds awesome, but the experience is very subtle, and it's from there that we're already in a sense of a relaxed awareness. And what tends to happen is that your thinking or the grip that thoughts have on you and sensations and all these things just begins falling. It becomes weaker, right? Because you're aware that you're the audience or the observer and you're the actor on the stage who's connected or totally absorbed in the thinking. But it's only in the relaxed state of awareness that we're able to simply observe that, and then its influence falls away, right? So important to understand that. Because then we cultivate that art of catching ourselves when we notice that we've been caught in a current of thinking, and we can step back from it. Thinking is a tool. It's like a tool. It's like this particular object. I mean, like the smartphone or these gadgets are like objectified minds. They're like objectified minds. All the thinking and all these processes that occur. But I am here, sometimes I'm fully absorbed in it. And other times I'm aware I'm holding this and I'm not this. It's like this, cultivating that art with your thinking that the thoughts that arise are objects. But when we don't really see them as objects because we're simply absorbed in them and reacting from them, we're reactive. We're frustrated because the thought is actually a frustrating thought. The nature of the thought is frustration, not you, but we're so absorbed in it that we are frustrated. But yet, if we observe the thought of frustration, then we're only partially frustrated, but we're connected with the peace that surpasseth all knowing and all understanding of these thoughts, or all identifying with these thoughts. You see how this takes some practice and more time spent in resting in aware presence and relaxing in it, learning the art of relaxing in it rather than just staying focused. Because the more we just do a focus practice in a stringent way, you reinforce that tension that is activated by frustrating thoughts, right? When you're absorbed and fully identified with frustrating thoughts or problems in the world, what is your energetic or your beingness? It's tense. There's tension. But what did you taste when you returned to a sense of beingness. You tasted peace, relaxation, letting go, expansion, lightness, transparency, vastness, rather than constriction, focus, tension, right? So the more we learn to return to this placeless place, and the more we rest in it, the more we become sensitive to this, to that experience, to that kind of awareness and presence, and the more we can recognize it as our real self. And the more we recognize it as a real self, the less we get carried away by all these thoughts, even if we still are taken by them. It's less and less and less, and its effects are less and less and less. There's multiple ways to answer the second part, or to respond to the second part of changing thought patterns. Some of this has to do with working with um, conscious meditation frameworks, focused structured meditations, where you may cultivate an attitude or an idea, and there's certainly a place for that. Where if there's a lot of negativity in us, we can heal this to some extent by cultivating positive thoughts, by bringing in shukr and being open to all the blessings, and by simply reflecting on them. In other words, those are focused, attentive thoughts or intentive thoughts that we're attending to, which serve to displace our unconscious default of negativity. You see? That's a structured meditation, whether it's cognitive behavioral therapy or cultivating spiritual attitudes that you reflect on, the attitude of charity, of generosity, of patience, of forbearance, of trust in God, of contentment with things. You see how that's a cultivation. That cultivation, you're bringing that into your heart and mind and cultivating that attitude. That's a subtle internal meditation, and a focused one on those attitudes. There's a place for that, and that's very important in this process of changing the thought patterns, or transforming, of shifting your default to something that's more beautiful. But the reason why it really works is because your nature is beautiful. Your actual nature is beautiful. It's peace. It is contentment. It's vast. It's all these things. It's not anger. It's not these. These are superimposed until they become your default, because they keep on arising in you and you keep on reinforcing it. But actually, what you are is this, kind of simply peacefulness. It's like when you clean your room finally, and it's just, you feel a peace in it. What is that? That's that place that has become clean and less scattered. But there's a resonance with that spaciousness and the inner spaciousness of fitra. Because what you are these things: peace, clarity, vastness. These are qualities of your ruh. So by cultivating those thoughts, this actually helps displace those other aspects. But then after we do that enough, it's important to learn to relax and verify that all these things that we were focused on and determined to cultivate are already present. That's where the relaxed sense of returning to your pure beingness comes in the meditation, which we touched upon in our guided meditation. For here we then existentially verify that we're already all those things. So if I simply return to this, I can change thought patterns. But now, if you just simply rest there and be that, even that agenda to change thought patterns just falls away. You just return here and stay open as those old thought patterns arise, and they will dissolve in it. This is a more subtle practice. but it is what occurs naturally when one is entering and staying in the heart, what I call the second journey in God, in God's presence. When we stay and when we return back to God's presence that we touched, our heart presence, when these things arise, they begin to dissolve. Anything in contradiction or tension with this natural state of being of our fitra of the heart will fall away by the light and by the presence of this. Provided we return and we stay open as it will dissolve and neutralize all these tendencies. That is a more subtle, more encompassing, you could even say more superior practice. But I don't want to mislead you. You're hardly doing that practice when you're there. It's just happening. So until you're there, you need to put in more mujahada to actually attempt to cultivate and change your patterns, aligning them consciously with virtuous patterns of existence, which will then begin taking care of the negative thought patterns and behaviors, which then arise from these negative energetics of the soul, of the heart, right? So I hope that's helpful to some extent, and I hope that um, answers or responds, and something that one can come back to. This is an important question that you asked, and I hope that what I said is helpful. In the spiritual path, in the practices that we do, when we have a routine, that routine helps strengthen our mind by being focused on the subtle object of the remembrance of God and the attitudes that we cultivate in that, the prophetic virtues, etc., that are connected to the qualities of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, itself a reflection of what we are internally. The more we do this and we have a routine of dhikr in the morning and evening, and the more we cultivate and contemplate these attitudes, these qualities, the more they begin to take the space of our soul, and the more they displace those things that adversely were the default, our negativity and our worries, etc. Some of those are still there, but now we've rearranged the furniture, or we've allowed the power of the truth of our beingness to begin to displace these things until it becomes more second nature to recognize actually it was our first nature to begin with. And then even more subtle kind of blessings occur from there. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم العصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
لا إله إلا الله 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 لا إله إلا الله